In this week's astrology, the event of the year has happened. When we first started 2022, everyone, well, at least all astrologers, we were all talking about Mars going retro in the sign of Gemini. And the day is here. As of today, as I'm recording this, Mars is retro in Gemini. He turned retro at 6:25 a.m. That's PST, Los Angeles time. And he will stay there until March of 2023. And that is the complete term of his transit through Gemini, but he does end the retro in January of 2023. And the reason that this transit is very interesting is because Mars is the ruler of the South Node. And, well, the ruler of the South Node currently. The nodes change signs approximately every 18 months. And currently we have the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. So Mars being the ruler of the South Node, because it's transiting the sign of Scorpio, makes this retro much more significant. Now, Mars in the sign of Gemini tends to be a little bit more felt because Mars being a natural fire sign and an air sign can get a little bit out of control when it's fueled with a lot of air. So the fire grows, the tempers grow. Everything that Mars rules just can be pretty much exaggerated. And then we have him ruling the South Node where the eclipse are happening, and we're in the middle of eclipse season. So he turns retro right in the middle of eclipse season. And we already know eclipse seasons bring a lot of changes in destiny. Some people experience very beautiful and transformative eclipse, and some people experience very transformative but in more of a PTSD type of way. It all depends on how these eclipses aspect you personally. The more trines and sextiles you have to the eclipse itself, the better experienced. But even the energy of the eclipse standalone chart can tell you whether it's going to be a pleasant experience for people or not. So even that needs to be taken into account. So we did recently have the new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio at 2 degrees, where Venus was there as well, and the node was at 13 degrees. And as of today, October the 30th, we have Mars going retro, and we have the sun at 7 degrees, we have Venus at 9, the node is still at 13 degrees, and then we have Mercury that just entered the sign of Scorpio, and Mercury is going to trigger the point where the sun and the moon and Venus met for the eclipse. So it does bring up the energy of the eclipse because Mercury is triggering that point. And I had mentioned this in my live with Kathy on Instagram, where I discussed how the eclipse was going to be felt through the zodiac signs. And one of the things that I mentioned was that this eclipse is going to be triggering the 13-degree South Node, and at the same time it's opposing the North Node in Taurus at 13 degrees, and all these planets are going to be staggering behind. So this is a week where all these planets are saying goodbye, they're letting go because they are connecting with the South Node. So let's talk about the mood of the week. We first start the week with a moon in Capricorn, and that's the same day that Mars goes retro. So we start with this very charged cardinal energy, and the moon conjuncts Pluto shortly after. And then we have the moon ingress Aquarius, and that's on Monday. And then from there, around Wednesday, 11:46 a.m. PST, we have the moon transit into the sign of Pisces, and it stays there for Thursday, and then it transits into the sign of Aries on Friday at 4:06 p.m. PST, and then we finish off the week with an Aries moon. So we start with this very earthy, grounded, long-term energy Capricorn moon, but it's still cardinal energy. It's still starting something that it's going to be its focus for quite some time. It's like bullseye type of energy, eye on the prize type of energy. And then we finish off the week with a moon in Aries, which then starts a new project very quickly, or starts a new endeavor, or starts a new relationship, or starts a new communication. But this is more impulsive. This is more quick. I also found it interesting that we start the week with a moon in Capricorn, which is a sign that Mars is exalted in. And then we end the week with a moon in Aries, which is a sign that Mars rules. So that's the general mood of the week. It's cardinal, move through energy, and something's melting, something's defrosting, because we have this very cold moon, and then at the end we go into a spring moon, which is very vibrant and full of life. So there's something that's thawing out in this process, and it's ready to be born. It's ready to be released. It's ready to show its true colors and face. So I just found that interesting. Now, Mars being the big aspect of the week, going retro. On the day that it goes retro, it makes some contacts to Pluto. It's also making contacts to Neptune, and it's been hanging around that 25-degree point for quite some time. So if you have any planets between, I want to say 22 to like 28 degrees, you're definitely feeling Mars aspecting that planet. And it does not matter where you have it. Mars can aspect every degree 25 in any sign. So if it's a neighboring sign, it's going to be a semi-sextile. If it's a sign that is 6 signs away, that's going to be an inconjunct. So no matter where you have this planet between 22 to 28 degrees, Mars is going to make an aspect. And the more positive expression is going to be that sextile and trine. So Mars in Gemini is going to sextile a Libra and Aquarius, and then it's going to trine. It's not going to sextile Libra and Aquarius. It's going to trine Libra and Aquarius, and it's going to sextile Leo and Aries. So any planets in Leo and Aries, it gets that sextile. Any planets in air of Libra and Aquarius, it gets a trine. So that's much more supportive. The mutable signs are all going to get a very big dose of Mars retrograde, and it's going to be a little bit more wild and chaotic, because it's either going to form a conjunction to planets in Gemini, or a opposition to planets in Sagittarius, or squares to planets in Virgo and Pisces. So mutable signs are going to feel the Martian force. It can be very positively expressed if we just kind of slow down and remember to do things twice, because Mars is in Gemini, so it's going to do a lot of double taking. And this could be like within ideas or projects that you are working on. Maybe you kind of have to work on 2 things at once so you can come up with fresh ideas, have them kind of simmer, and then move on to something else and come back to it when you are very happy with what you produced, or maybe you thought of other ideas while you were working on something else. I wouldn't recommend doing too many projects because it can also cause burnout, but Gemini just can't do one thing at a time. That energy does require at least 2 things. That's my experience, and a lot of my clients that have a strong Gemini influence feel the same way. So just make sure you're not toggling too many things, and as long as you are focusing on 2 main things, then that should be very manageable, and you'll see you'll get way more inspiration, way more things done, because you're going to give yourself a little break in between while you're still productive and working on something else, and then get some epiphanies, and you'll have the energy to follow through and complete things if you work that way. regarding arguments, because Mars does rule more of the aggressive, assertive, very passionate, very adventurous and brave side of things. And he is sometimes portrayed as a villain, but I really do feel that because of Mars being the first sign of the zodiac, he does have some beautiful and brilliant qualities that we wouldn't be able to exist without them. And one of them being daring, passionate, action-oriented, entrepreneurial, and having very big vision and acting before thinking, really following instinct. And I really think this is what assisted us in surviving for so many years and assists humanity from like expanding and not staying complacent in one place, right? Like taking those chances, but through inspiration and passion and desire. But then Mars does have a side of him where he can be over assertive, argumentative, aggressive, can be borderline abusive, and also deal with more of the darker things in life, like fears, traumas, wars. He's a god of war. And during this time, we'll see that a lot of the lower qualities of Mars can get triggered more easier. However, if we're able to channel this information, this house where you have Mars transiting through, which is Gemini, and this house is going to be different for everyone. If you're able to channel that energy, you can make a lot of good out of this Mars transit there. He can bring a lot of inspiration, but because he is going retro, it's not going to be without frustration or maybe a little bickering or disagreements, or even self-quarrel, like self-disagreement, like you fighting within your own self, kind of like that Dr. Jekyll, Mrs. Hyde type of energy. So we do have to make sure that we are trying our best not to react and to be fully informed before we make those decisions, and be very patient with ourselves wherever Mars is transiting and whatever context Mars is making to, especially mutable houses, mutable planets. So let's break down the houses for each person, each zodiac sign. So if you are in Aries rising, your third house is ruled by Gemini. So that is where Mars is transiting, and that's going to be connected to your neighborhoods and siblings and your speech. So you're going to see that all those areas of life that are ruled by the third house are going to be affected by you either focusing a lot of energy and topics, like a lot of those third house themes are going to be coming up. Third house also rules cars, transportation, local travel, early education, sales, advertising, merchandising, the internet. So you can see that there's going to be a hyper focus for you there. If you are a Taurus rising, then Gemini rules your second house, and your second house is the house of resources, your values, the wealth that you collect, how you spend your money, how you maintain your wealth, and how you spend that wealth, like what type of luxury items you purchase, or if you don't purchase those luxury items. It's also the connection to the home. Not as deep as the fourth house, but this is more like family in general, like the family values that were inherited or taught onto you that now you can either choose to adopt or modify, but it's a value itself. So an example, if you grew up, some people do this, they grow up with parents that don't save too much, and then they turn around and become real good investors, or they save for the future because they learned from the value, the lesson that was taught through their family. And there's other ones that inherit positive values. So it all depends on the situation. So you're going to see those themes of values, resources, and self-worth be huge topic for you with Mars there. Then we have Gemini rising. And Gemini rising, this is you. This is your first house. This is a house of the body. You're going to be highly energized, but you're also going to be one of the signs that gets a little bit more agitated than the others, because you're going to be thinking so fast. You're also going to be divining so quickly that sometimes your ideas are not fully understood, and you have very little patience right now to explain them. So just remember that if you find yourself in a situation where you're getting really frustrated, it's not really that they're not understanding you, and also that it's not that you're at fault either. It's more that the energy is having you think like a mile a second, not a mile a minute, a mile a second. And this is causing issues in the comprehension of the idea or the communication that you're trying to reach across to the other side, to communicate to the other party. So in those situations, remember, just slow down a bit, give yourself a little break, do something that calms you down quickly. So maybe it could be that you just take a few, breaths, or you table a conversation and come back to it later, whatever it is. So you don't get to that point where you're very agitated and then things can blow up and you get no result from it. So just be very careful. Now we have Cancer. If you're a Cancer rising, Gemini rules your 12th house. So Cancer risings are going to feel this energy more internalized. The 12th house is the house of the subconscious. It's also the house of unconscious. So there's a difference between that. Unconscious is things that you just don't know. Subconscious are things that you didn't know at one point and then come into your awareness. So there can be things from the unconscious that go to the subconscious, and then we go to conscious. So there's like a flow, but the 12th house rules both the unconscious and the subconscious, and Mars there is going to be working on those deep topics. It's also a very karmic house. It's connected to our spirituality. It's connected to the answers and the mysteries of life that we seek. It's connected to a lot of solitude. It's the bedroom. It's a place where you go in to restore, recharge, regenerate yourself. So Mars is going to do a lot of work there. You might find yourself being a mini spiritual warrior during this time, maybe standing up more, or really focusing on your spiritual practice. Maybe you've been wanting to start yoga, and you've been fascinated with the idea of incorporating it as a daily habit, and it hasn't happened. This is going to be easier for you to implement at this time, because Mars, no matter where he's at, is always going to require action and physical activity. And if you combine yoga is like meditation, but with movement, right? So you're combining both the meditation part, which would be that 12th house, with movement, which would be Mars. And if you make it a little bit more rigorous, or maybe do like hot yoga, things like that, you can actually be very successful. Incorporate mindful walks and things like that. I find that Mars in the 12th house also is very active in your dream life. So I would keep a journal by your bed so you can write down what you dreamt and see if you can analyze it. So buy yourself a dream book, or, tab a good website where you can analyze some of your dreams. Have fun with it. And for Leo rising, Gemini rules your 11th house. So the 11th house is a good house. Actually, it's a house that talks about the wealth that you'll acquire through the work that you do. And there's a few reasons why. First, because it's the second house from the 10th house, and it's also the 6th house from the 6th house. So this means that it's the work house from the work that you do. So it's the money that you're generating from career and work. So the 11th house also talks about networks. It talks about how connected you are. It talks about your belief systems in regard to how humanity should be, the welfare of humanity, what you would advocate for, and your long-term dreams, goals, desires, the money that you make through the work that you do, the career that you're choosing, especially if you're very aligned with your chart, meaning everything kind of flows. Like the area of career has always just worked for you, and you generate pretty good money, and you're happy, and you have a good, home, and you have a lot of things that bring you happiness. You'll see that the 11th house is very healthy, and this means this person gets a lot of their goals and dreams completed and met, and they usually use a lot of law of attraction within their life, because they believe that that attracts more things into their life. So you're going to see Mars in that house, and while it's retro, it can actually go in there and reshape your belief systems in regard to how you trust the universe. It can also talk about doing something with your investments that you have, because this is also the house of investments. It's a house of friendships, especially friendships, like large groups of friendships and networks and social media. So you might see that maybe the groups that you are involved in are more outspoken during this time, and there's going to be some topics that kind of come out and then bring this like warrior of justice and humanitarian causes to stand up for their rights and, like fight for the people. Just be extra cautious that you're not overdoing it, and that you are communicating in a way that is going to be productive versus causing more stress. But in general, this is a pretty good transit. I also seen some bickering between friends when Mars is in the 11th house, for whatever sign. So since this is happening for Leo, just kind of watch for that, because it is going to go retro. So it could be that your friends are feeling a little bit more Martian, right? More aggressive, more irritated. And you might then participate in some disagreement or argument and bicker or fight. So try to prevent that, so like that you guys don't ruin your friendship. But in general, I actually feel like Mars in the 11th house is pretty good to like stand up to your beliefs that you feel are going to change the world. So I don't really think that's a bad transit. Then we have Mercury ruled Virgo sign. For Virgo, this is going to be one of the signs that has a little bit tougher expression with it. But because your ascendant sign is Virgo and Gemini is your 10th house, it could be that you can utilize this energy to really set afoot your ultimate career, to really lay out that red carpet that leads you to satisfaction to the work that you do, right? So you're kind of laying everything out so you can get that dream job, so you can actually have the courage to do so. I actually see that Mars in the 10th house gives a lot of energy to go after your dreams when it comes down to the career that we do. Most of us are focused on career and love. Those are big major themes in our life, because we know career is going to bring food to the table and give us, a home, and then give us money to spend on ourselves, etc. And family and love, obviously. We also value that. So from the 10th house, if you have this good career, you see that a lot of the times you have a good home, and kind of a lot of things within the chart get sorted out. So Mars in the 10th really is interested in positioning itself in a well-placed career that is more of a life purpose career. It's not just like a regular job. It's something that they see they can do for a while, or they can be known for that, right? Like they leave some sort of name or legacy, and people know them as, oh, this is an excellent marketer, or an excellent realtor, or an excellent manager, and then that's what they did for a living. So Mars likes to kind of have you stand out in that area. So For you Virgos, this is actually pretty productive if you want to focus on career and your life purpose. If your focus is on love, you're going to have to look at other transits, because Mars is going to take all that attention and say, nope, let's focus on career. So unless you have very strong transit elsewhere, and which you kind of do, because you're going to have Jupiter in the 7th for a little bit, you're going to see that your main focus is going to be your achievements, really your legacy. So how you can move up, or how you can apply for a new job, or have the courage to leave a job to seek another, things like that. But then with that done, it does bring some type of stress, right? Especially if you leave a job and you don't have another one secured. So you'll see a little bit of correlation between that. Then we have Libra. So Gemini rules your 9th house of belief systems, of foreign places, of studying, of teachers, of mentors or mentorship, of you teaching, of you lecturing something that you've studied and researched, and letting others know, right, this study and research, so then they can learn as well. So this is a very guiding house. It's also the house of your belief systems. These are the belief systems that you're shaping, because it's the higher mind. It's the house of the higher mind. So Mars there can really do a number on how you see the world. And I don't really think this is a bad transit. Now, if you have any type of legal case or court case going on, you're going to see some pullback or pushback with Mars there, because this is also the 9th house of the justice system. And you'll see that Mars is gonna like kind of give you a run for your money if that's the case. So be very careful with that. It is gonna be a long transit, so you just want to make sure that you're double taking, right? You're checking things more than twice, but you're kind of looking at different outcomes and scenarios so that you are covered. But in general, Mars in the 9th house is really good to like explore new belief systems. It can actually be a little crazy if you travel abroad during this time, because you might find yourself in situations that bring up that Martian energy where you have to kind of I don't know, you get stuck in a riot of some sort, or some chaos, or there's some type of Mars type of activity. So be very careful if you're planning to travel abroad during this time, because it is affecting your 9th house of travel, foreign travel. And then we have Scorpio. So for Scorpio, Gemini rules your 8th house. This is going to be a tougher transit for Scorpios, especially Scorpio ascendants, because Gemini is ruling a health house, and this is the fear house. This is the trauma house. This is the money house, joint money. This is the loans that you owe. This is your partner's money, which is something that's very deep and private, people don't really like to talk about. So it's going to be very intimate, something very dear. Now, what you can do with this aspect, honestly, when Mars is in the 8th house, it's really good to explore the sexuality. It's good to tend to the sexual organs. It actually, it can be utilized for having a baby, but because it's going to retro, sometimes there could be complications or miscarriages, things like that. So I don't really advise it, but you'll see that some people are going to be very fertile under this, because the 8th house is the house of pregnancy. So it could assist with that, but I would still be careful. I would kind of wait till the eclipse season is over to kind of try, and then from there utilize it. But it's really good to tackle debt when Mars is in the 8th house. And this could be something that you've been wanting to do for quite some time and never really got around to it. Never really got around to setting that budget so you can actually tackle the debt. And Mars in the 8th house retro is going to give you the time to focus on that. You're going to be fed up with paying extra interest or penalty fees. You're going to set yourself up for success, and you're going to eliminate your debt. So that's one of the good things, that you can help your partner eliminate their debt. I've seen Mars in the 8th with bankruptcy too. Some people just decide like, you know what, I'm like in too deep and I can't do it. The best route is bankruptcy. I've seen that too. So just kind of visit and see what it is that you need to do to improve the debt that you have to others, whether it's monetary or some type of very deep emotional connection, and then how to sever it, but in a way that's going to be the best for everyone involved. So this could be severing debt by, like, if you owe money, getting rid of it, or it can be cutting cords, like doing a cutting cord ritual to let go of old lovers and connections that you still feel with them, or old situations that cause trauma and a lot of pain, finding a way to heal them. Mars is going to hyper focus there, so you're going to be able to do this stuff. And then we have Sagittarius. So this is the other immutable sign where Mars is making an opposition. And you, especially Sagittarius rising, you're having Mars transit the 7th house, which this is going to impact your relationship sector, your marriage, or any type of business dealings, partnerships that you have, contracts, things like that. Mars is going to have you focus and kind of hammer down some things. Remember, it's ruling that south node, so it's kind of letting go of something in that house that is no longer serving you, and this could be something that you can bring into your awareness, because you do have the south node in the house of the subconscious, the 12th house. So it's going to be something that's brought into light, brought into your awareness, so you can let go. So be very extra careful if you get into any arguments or disagreements or bickering with your partner, because this can be a very sensitive side. Similarly to Scorpio ascendant, when you have Mars in the 8th house, you can focus on sex, topics of sex and sexuality and sexual expression. Maybe even participate in, like, sex therapy or doing sexual games, so you can connect more intimately with your partner. That's going to be similar to Sagittarius rising when Mars is in the 7th house. You can channel that forceful energy because Mars likes to kind of like, banter and be adventurous and maybe do things together that are a little bit more yang type of energy, more focused on external expression, like taking trips or being active, or maybe a lot of PDA. And you can definitely connect with your partner on a more sexual, intimate level during this time. It could also be a time that you can finally express to your partner if there's anything that you feel that you weren't truly fulfilled in. Maybe you don't feel like your intimate life is like as it should be, or it needs to be a little bit more intimate. Then it's time to have those conversations. But it will kind of trigger some stuff, so be sure that before you bring this up, you kind of thought about the outcomes. Remember, 2 scenarios: if I say it like this, or if I do this, or what happens if it gets out of control? Do we drop it? So have a plan, but definitely use this energy to communicate those things that you really feel will benefit the relationship and make it stronger. Because after this transit, Mars is going to go into your 8th house, where you can really feel that deep connection where, like, you guys are bonding, where you're mine, I'm yours, we're one. That type of energy. Now, when it comes to business contracts, Mars can give some issues. Maybe there's a lot of going back, negotiating and second guessing. And when it comes to business contracts and Mars transiting the 7th house, I usually see that both parties are not happy with the outcome, but there can be a very definitely a middle ground. But it really shows that both parties feel like they lost in a way, like they didn't really get what they expected, but then at the same time they're okay because they feel they won in some aspects. So be very cautious with that. Make sure that you're double checking everything, because it can be sneaky, and then from there you can get the short end of the stick. Now, this is the other house that rules the court system, but this is the court in general. This is the case in general, versus the energy of the 9th house is the court system. So this can also bring some issues with your trial and things like that, if that's something that you're going through. So be extra careful during this time. The best thing to do when you have this type of transit is to be as transparent as possible with, especially if you're using an attorney, so like that they're able to better defend you, Mars energy. So it could also bring some positive expression, especially for the single Sagittarius, where you're like ready to go out there, you're ready to really meet the person. And this usually works out really well when you worked on yourself and you've transformed and really explored your patterns of attracting another person and really honored what you really like about your past partners and what you really didn't like. So like that you can change the circumstance and maybe find that true partner that you will spend, a lot of quality time, and then eventually maybe even marry and spend the rest of your life with. So I do feel that if you've gone through that stage where you explored your past patterns and you worked on yourself and went through a self-love journey, Mars in the 7th house is just going to push you to go out there. You're going to be ready to assert yourself in relationships. And if you seem to be a very traditional person where you feel, I'm this gender, so I feel that the other gender should be the one that pursues or things like that, you're going to see that all that shit goes out the window. And when you see what you want, you're going to go out and you're going to get it. Mars in Gemini tends to be a very, very big flirt, and this is going to arouse you sexually. So arousing the mind is going to also arouse you sexually, because Mars rules the sexual organs along with Venus. So a lot of flirting and joking and having really charged conversations, you'll see that that's going to intrigue Mars. So it could also bring out some positive for the Sagittarius rising. Then we have the Capricorn rising. This is another tough expression because Gemini rules your 6th house of daily routines. What I've seen is that Mars is going to be focusing on making sure you have the best routine that is suiting your time, that is best for you. So you're not wasting time, because Mars does not like to waste time. It likes to act. Sometimes it does waste time because it doesn't think things through, but it definitely that wasn't the purpose. He wanted to, go for it. So Mars in the 6th, you want to focus on your health. You want to focus on your daily routine. You want to focus on work matters, your medical appointments, looking at your diet and how you approach diet. Also incorporating a lot of movement and action within your daily routines. So I mean, a lot of us, and actually a younger generation, I've noticed this more with people born after the 90s, and I've been doing some research about it, and I'll talk about this later. It's a whole other podcast, but I feel that there's a certain aspect that created a urge to work out and to take care of the body and respect the body in a different way that other generations haven't necessarily done. And that doesn't mean that they didn't do it at all, but I see just way more younger people, and they're going to age and they're going to still have that urge to take care of the body. So either way, this could be a time that you start seeing if you're going to incorporate a workout time, or if you're going to incorporate movement within your time, within your day. So I'm one that likes to incorporate movement. I do like working out, but not as much. And I like taking more walks and incorporating more movement throughout my days. So just say an example, I'll take the stairs instead of taking the elevator, and I'll park further so I can get more steps in. I'll take a short walk in the morning, in the evening, and at night I'll take a longer walk. So I like to just incorporate a lot of movement throughout my day so I can get So I can make it as natural as possible. That's just my type of style. And then I do incorporate some days that I go to the gym or go to the sauna, things like that. So you might want to work on those routines for yourself, especially if you've been wanting to get healthier and take your health more serious. Then this is the best time for that. I also recommend, whenever you have Mars in the 6th house, to do some type of lab work, like get your blood tested for all your minerals and vitamins and things like that. So like that, you know how strong you are, how you can catch things early, preventative. Whenever you have any transits to the 6th house, I recommend that. So Capricorn tends to pretty much take care of itself because it is a sign that tends to look at the long run. But now you're going to have that focus of Mars in the 6th house, just really having you hone in onto your routines. And it can deplete your energy because it is a health house. So make sure you're taking care of yourself. Spicy food could be a little bit irritating to the digestive system, so be careful with that. IBS can actually flare up, or any type of gut issues can flare up when Mars is there. When Mars goes direct, it actually heals it. So when it's retro, you just have to be very careful with your digestive system, because it could be that Mars is throwing it off. And then Mars can also trigger the urge to eat more spices within your food, even spicy food, which if you're not used to can also irritate you. So be very cautious about inflammatory things. Remember, see your doctor. This is not medical advice, but always see your doctor for anything that you feel is bothering you. And then we have Aquarius rising, and Gemini is ruling your 5th house for you. So this is actually a really good transit. Mars in the 5th is going to make you more adventurous. It's going to make you more curious on exploring with either a partner or the things that you love, or executing hobbies, or taking on a hobby, things like that. It can also trigger children. So it could be something correlated to children, having children, be more childlike, be more romantic. This is the house of romance. This is the house of courtship, where you're being flirtatious and you're courting each other and taking each other out on dates and getting to know each other. So it's a really good house, a really good adventurous house. It can bring children here, usually boys, because of the yang energy that Mars has. So be very careful if that's not something that you are trying to attain or achieve. You can focus on starting a business, because this is the house of entrepreneur. It's a hobby that you feel that can eventually turn into a bigger business, but at first it starts like a hobby and like extra money. So you can really execute it while Mars is in Gemini. You can work out all the details, so when it goes direct, then you can launch it and it can be way more successful. You'll be more driven and inspired to do so as well. So this is actually a really good transit. Like, plan, have fun, lots of leisure. Now, just be extra careful with, again, arguments or disagreements when it comes to your romantic partners. But what I see with Mars retro, it's usually either the children having some issues, even your adult children. It all depends on what age your children are. They might come to you with some things going on, and you kind of have to assist them or hear them out so they can sort it out. But again, it's a trine, so it's more positive. It's not going to be such a big deal unless they have other, planets and other houses that are kind of compounding that. Then we have Pisces and Gemini. For Pisces, Gemini rules the 4th house. So this is also a very tough one, because Pisces ascendant, especially since Mars rules the 4th house, we're going to have that Mars energy in the 4th, the house of the sacred space, the house of the internal heart, the feelings, the nurturing, the place we call home, where we go and retreat and we feel safe and we feel love and we feel cared, where we have all our items of value, where we display everything that we love, where we relax, where we put our guard down. Mars in the 4th house is going to be difficult because it's not going to let itself put a guard down. You're going to see that you're more active, and this can be that you decide to move. So it could actually push you to move, or even contemplate the idea of moving or purchasing real estate or remodeling your home, or addition to the home, like a baby or a person into the home. It could be like, a cousin moves in, or you're helping them out, things like that. So there's addition to homes whenever we see Mars there, but there can also be disagreement because there's a lot of movement. The remedy for Mars in the fourth, honestly, is either you're going to be cooking a lot and using knives, right? Like cooking, chopping, things like that, keeping that Mars energy very active, and also using fire. You're cooking with fire. You're kind of using that Mars energy to burn out the excess energy that it brings to the fourth house, or you're remodeling, rearranging, things like that. Or you're working in your garden, because this rules the fourth house rules home garden, so you can be out there and kind of plowing and planting new things. Or maybe you decide to build a pond so that or clean your pond, or remodel your pond, things like that. Build a porch, whatever, so like that you can get all that energy expressed in a more productive, positive way. It's also good to work on matters that are connected to your ancestry, to your ancestors, to your lineage in general. Childhood traumas, the inner child, working on the inner child. So Mars is going to kind of, agitate those things. They're going to come up, and you're going to start working on them. And you're going to see that after Mars leaves this house, it really cuts some things out of your life that you no longer have to hold on to, that you no longer need to identify with. And they might still be part of your identity, but you're not holding it as a injury or wound or a disadvantage of some sort. You're really seeing the gift for what it was, and you're allowing a new opportunity, new abundance, new energy to come in and replace that, so you can really take advantage of what's coming next for you. So really deep work. So that was Mars through all the houses. And as you can see, there's just going to be a lot of deep things going on for everyone. This is going to last all the way through March of 2023. And Mars is going to be way more powerful when it conjuncts or aspects planets. So it's going to transit between 25 to 8 degrees. So the closer it gets to those degrees, you're going to see that Mars influence stronger and stronger, and then it'll leave you alone for periods of time, then it'll communicate with another planet, and then you'll feel it again. So let's move on to what happens for the rest of the week. We have Venus conjunct the south node and oppose the north node. So again, something in regard to our destiny that's tied into our value, love, money, and how we feel about ourselves, the general beauty, the senses, how we experience the material. So you're going to see some of this really being the focus, because we're going to have a lot of planets conjunct the nodes and oppose the nodes this time around. And since Venus is the ruler of the north node currently, because the north node is in Taurus, really, Venus is asking you to let go of things that are blocking that Taurus house from actually experiencing true fulfillment, true evolution, a new experience. So really dig into that South Node, Scorpio house, and find things that you need to evolve, things that you might not have to let go of them, but modify them in some way so they can then incorporate the polar energy, which is that Taurus house. And then we have on Saturday, November 5th, we have the Sun opposing the North Node and conjuncting the South Node at 1:25 p.m. PST. And that same day, we have Venus opposing Uranus at 3:21 p.m. PST. So Saturday is going to be another, like it ends the week with a bam, with a shock, with enlightenment of some sort, with progression, with a new idea, because we do have Venus conjunct the South Node, but opposing Uranus, which brings that tad bit of unpredictability. It's going to affect your relationships, your money, everything that Venus rules. You're going to see some type of shocking event. And there's times that this is very positive. It can be that you identify that you are truly attracted to this type of person, or things like that, or you find, or you meet a person that you're like, whoa, why do I have all these very strong feelings, like I've known this person for a very long time? Because remember, the nodes can bring that stuff. And since Venus is also having you let go of things, it could be that you've been in a very messy relationship, and this is a turning point. You let go of that messy relationship, and you really trust the universe that this new love that's being presented to you is, the person, or at least the person that's going to help you, like the stepping stone, so you can release your soul, release yourself, and then really find that person that you're meant to be with. So the sun also conjuncting the South Node, kind of, again, re-triggering all this week, re-triggering the first solar eclipse we had. And you're still having to revisit, what is it that I've purged? What is it that I'm evolving? What is it that I am grateful that I've mastered and learned, but now I need to change things around. I need to modify it. I need to present it in a new way so I can utilize my current talent and evolve it and make it better and feel a different experience with the result. So then we end the week with that moon in Aries. So again, you started something new. And then for next week, we have the lunar eclipse, which is going to be incorporating Uranus. So this is why I chose to talk about these important aspects. There are other aspects that happen throughout the week, but these are the most important. We have Mars in Gemini. We have Venus communicating with the nodes. We have the sun communicating with the nodes. And then we have Uranus also communicating with Venus. So thank you so much for being here. If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. And thank you so much for being here. Have a beautiful eclipse season. Take care of yourself during Mars retro. And I will talk to you all next week. Love and light.